Hi guys, it's Miss Puritz. This is a review for Unit 2 on economic activity. It's a review for the test that you're going to have, so pay attention. I'm going to give you special advice for how to do each part of the test, and I'm going to do the 4 sections that we did, A, B, C, and D, so I'll do 4 separate videos. All right, first part. The whole first part, part A, is really focused on vocabulary. It's an understanding the terminology, okay? So first super important definition is the economy. The economy is responsible for the use of resources which satisfy the needs or wants of individuals or groups, like food or free time. So does this definition mention money? No. We're not necessarily talking about money. There are bartering economies where people trade one kind of good for another, and that's it. Okay? So it's how resources are distributed amongst a community. All right, a few important definitions here. Goods. Goods are basically like products, as that's how we sort of think of them, except the product is a kind of good. So any kind of good is defined by these 5 characteristics. They're produced to satisfy needs, okay? Needs or wants, really. They're limited, right? The sky is not a good because the sky, well, technically I suppose it is limited, but anything that is unlimited, like sunshine, for example, is not a good because it's unlimited. It comes every day, right? They can be bought and sold, right? Which means that they have a price. They're bought and sold for a specific price, and they're produced using different resources or factors of production, okay? We'll talk about factors of production, which are resources in a minute, but just have this idea of goods are the things that you're buying and selling on the market, okay? Now, very important. It's confusing. You have goods, and there's 2 kinds of goods. They're products and services, okay? So colloquially, we might use products to mean goods, but really, goods include products and services. So products are, when you think of a product that's bought and sold, a book, a desk, a car, right? Something that's a material object that you can touch, it's tangible and palpable. And a service is work that is done by a person that does not produce a tangible product. So a taxi driver taking you from one place to another, he's providing you with a service, right? A teacher is teaching you how to do things, right? It's a service. A lawyer, right? A publisher. One important thing to understand is that our economy is a service economy. More than 70% of jobs, and if you think about maybe what your parents do, it's probably this, more than 70% of jobs in Western Europe are service sector, right? We don't go to work at the factory to make semiconductors, most of us, right? Maybe 20% of the population does, but about 70%, 75% provide some kind of service, okay? When you go to a restaurant, you're provided with a product, which is the food, but primarily you're provided with the service, right? That it's the server bringing you the food, it's people preparing the food for you. That's what you're really paying for, right? Okay, factors of production. These are the resources that you need to make goods. Okay, so these are the inputs for the output. The output is the finished good. Okay, so with factors of production, you need to know both the definition, what this concept, factors of production, is, and you need to know what the 3 factors of production are, which we'll talk about next. But basically, get the definition. They're what's utilized in the production process excuse me, in order to produce an output that is the finished good. So it's the input or the resources that make the output. All right, and there are 3 kinds of factors of production. These are also called the means of production. Okay, so factors of production is the same thing as means of production. The shorthand way of saying it is land, labor, and capital. Land refers to natural resources, right? The earth that your factory is built on, for example, is a natural resource. The water that you use to make your Coca-Cola is a natural resource, right? Human resources are people and their labor, right? So at the school, for example, it would be all of the teachers, all of the staff, all of the secretaries, and the people who work in the kitchen, and the people who clean up, right? And then you have the capital resources, which usually we think of as money, but it's really anything that you also buy with the money to invest into your company. Or you could receive those things some other way. For example, imagine your father drives a taxi cab, and he has a taxi, and he has a taxi driver's license. which is that's worth about 200,000 euro. It's a big investment. So if he retires and he passes it on to you, he's not actually giving you money, but he is giving you capital resources, right? If he gives you the car, the taxi, and the taxi license, right? That's a capital resource. That's something that you can use. If somebody donates a computer to the school, that's a capital resource, right? Market economy is based on supply and demand. It's a system where people and companies produce, buy, and sell goods and services freely with limited state intervention. So this basically means people are buying and selling things without governments interfering very much, right? They might put in some basic, you can't do whatever you want, but mostly it's a free economy, a free-flowing economy. The factors of production belong to individuals and businesses, not the state, and the government can use economic policy to influence the economy. So the market economy, the market is not a physical place, but the market economy is where international trade takes place. Okay, so things are bought and sold. We say on the market, it's not a physical place, or sometimes they're talking about the stock market, for example. But it's just the buying and selling of goods without much influence from governments. Okay. You have to have the law of supply and demand super, super, super clear. We talked about it a lot in class, and I think that you have it. So supply is how much you have of something, and demand is how much people want or need to buy it. Basically, a good way to begin answering this question, because this question is on the exam, is that supply and demand is an economic model of price determination in a market. That needs to be clear, that we're talking about a model, right? It concludes that in a competitive market, the price for a particular good will vary until it settles at a point where the quantity demanded by consumers at that price will equal the quantity supplied by producers at that price, resulting in economic equilibrium for price and quantity. So, to answer the question correctly, probably you'll have the graphic as well. We'll have the price axis and the quantity axis. Okay, so first, let me go back. You need to explain what the two axes are, right? So price, these are just examples. So these are in dollars, 1, 2, 3, 4, right? And the quantity, 20, 40, 60. It could be anything. This could be bananas, whatever. And you have the supply curve and the demand curve, and there's always a place where they intersect called the equilibrium point. I'm gonna move to this one because we can see it a bit better. Okay, same thing. Price, quantity, supply, demand. Basically, talking about demand, if the price is high, are we going to buy a lot of it? No. This is what we were saying before about the example of fresh baked bread. Even if you're really hungry, if they're charging €5 for a loaf of bread, you're not going to buy very much, right? If, however, you're hungry and they're charging €1, right, you might buy 50 little pieces or whatever, of whatever it is, 50 or 5 or whatever. And the opposite goes for supply, right? If the price is set low, the supplier, this is the businessman who's thinking about it, says, well, I'm not making a lot of money from this product, so I'm not going to make a lot of them, right? I'm not going to invest all of my factory's capacity in making garlic bread if nobody likes garlic bread, right? If it's selling for this low price, I'm only going to make 10. If, however, I can raise the price, I'm going to want to make more, right? I want to sell more. If, however, the price is so high that people won't buy it, I might want to make a lot, but people only buy a little. So, for example, look at 4. If you're charging €4 for a big bag of potatoes or whatever, peanuts, whatever you want, people only want to buy about 15. But I like that, so I want to make more, so I'm going to make about 50. But now I have a problem. Now I have surplus. Surplus is extra that I can't sell. So what do I have to do? I have to bring the price down, right? And as I bring the price down, right, if I bring it down to 3, I'll sell quite a bit more, right? I'll get to about 30, but I still have some surplus. So I have to bring it down even more and eventually get to this magical equilibrium point, right? Where you sell all that you have for the maximum price that you could have sold it at, right? So this is what, when people talk about the virtues of capitalism being a perfect system that relies on natural laws, they're talking about this. that we don't need to do anything and the economy will always settle on a fair price for the consumers, because it doesn't make any sense that you would keep making something and charging so much for it that people can't buy it because you won't sell them. So it's a natural system that what people produce will more or less match the needs at the right price of the consumers. And you have the same thing with a shortage, right? If I'm not making a lot from producing potato chips, if I'm not making a lot from producing potato chips, I'm only going to make 10, right? Because it's not worth my money because I'm not making a big profit on it. However, the demand might be very high because €1 for a bag of chips is pretty good. So you have the consumer left wanting more, right? So what happens? You can raise the price, right? You can raise it to 2, and then the consumer will buy a little bit less, but you'll sell almost all of them, and eventually you'll find the equilibrium point, which will match supply with demand, okay? So go over it a few times, make sure you have it clear. I promise it's on the exam. Right? Prices are determined by supply and demand. Right, this is more about the market. The market is a method used to exchange goods and services and set prices, not necessarily a physical space. So this is just to make very clear to you that this goes on all over the world on an international level with all goods all the time, okay? This doesn't happen when the stock market opens and closes. This is always happening. All right, more definitions. These are simple. Economic agents are actors in the economies. Basically, we've got families, companies, and the states. Families are considered one or several people. If you share incomes and expenses, you're a family. If for whatever reason you don't, like your sister is much older and she lives on her own, and then maybe she loses her job and she can't afford to pay rent, so she moves home with her parents. But if she maintains her own finances, right, within reason, she's not considered part of the economic family, right? If she contributes all her earnings to the family and makes sort of communal expenses, which is probably what happens, she is considered part of the family. The companies are the organizations that produce goods and services to make a profit, easy. And the state sometimes is an actor as well. Okay, so in families, they do 2 things. They consume and they're workers, right? As workers, they receive an income. An income, we talked about this definition in class, okay? So you don't have exactly, income is all of the money coming in. It's an income because it's all the money coming in. Any kind of money, right? So it can be a salary, which is mostly what people make when they're thinking about money. This is what you're paid from your job every month. The salary is the money you are paid from your job every month, right? A wage is the money you're paid from your job every hour. So it depends how you're paid. You're either paid as a wage or a salary. But that's not the only form of income. Income includes inheritance. If you win the lottery, that's income, right? Any money coming in is income. And a budget is a plan that you use to balance your income and your expenses, okay? Usually families have a budget, okay? Businesses produce goods and services to obtain financial profit. If it asks why businesses produce goods and services, you say to obtain a financial profit. They may be more or less ethical, but the bottom line is that they have expenses and they have an income. When do they make a profit? They make a profit if their income is higher than their expenses. That is the only way that they can possibly make a profit, right? This is simple logic. And they're called companies when they belong to several people. The state also has income and has expenses. The expenses are the services that they offer, right? And the income is the taxes that they collect. Simple. Then you have 3 modern types of economic systems, which we'll talk about in more detail further on. But basically, you've got market capitalists. That's the market using supply and demand. You've got socialists. The market's controlled by the state. And then you've got the mixed economy, where the state intervenes in the economy but does not control it completely. Almost every nation and state in the world today is mixed, okay? All right, got your questions?